Hey, welcome. I hope you can hear me. I'm not uh, monitoring my voice at this time, but it looks like my levels are fine, and I hope my voice is coming through. Now, this is a different kind of stream. I'll just be basically filling up my eurorack case. So we'll talk a little bit about the modules here and my case, of course. And Wabbit is already in the chat. And if you would let me know if you can actually hear my voice. Let's see if this is actually working. And apparently it is. Okay, we'll get started. So, my new case. I built this a few weeks ago, basically the wooden part, and then I had to wait several weeks to get this one row of 84 HP rails here and my bus boards here. So basically, I used to have this 84 HP case that I built myself last December, I think. But the 84 HP, oh sorry, 6U 84 HP, so it was from here to here. So 2 rows of 84 HP, and it just got a little bit too small for me. So I was always having to basically take modules out and put other modules in, so swap modules, and then I would be missing something I would like to have in the rack, and it was constantly like it was annoying basically and not inspiring. So this time I added one row here, and this should be plenty for a while. Now about this DIY case thing, it's you probably shouldn't do it to save money. I did the math, and this basically ended up costing a little bit less than a Doepfer low-cost 9U case. So it's not really about the savings. Of course, you can get cheaper parts probably and skimp on power. Get a couple of those Behringer power supply units, for example, and then have plenty of power for a case this size. But I wanted to have decent quality power here, so I got the 4MS Row Power 45, and then I got these, can't really see them all that well, I got these bus boards from Modular Synth Lab, and they have 20 sockets for each board running into these sockets here. I have 19 left on each one, and that is plenty for a rack this size. I think I have maybe 27 modules, and some of them are passive, and one of them is this. So basically I have plenty of space, or plenty of slots for my power. I was thinking of going with flying bus boards, but that would be it becomes a mess in a case this size. It was okay in 2 rows of 84 HP. Now this is just made from basically sort of a wooden board. I don't know what you call this, timber board or whatever. It's a birch, and this is unfinished. I always leave my DIY things unfinished because I've noticed that it doesn't really matter. This is a lot cleaner build than my previous case. I still basically did this. They are cut like this, and this just pushed here, so it's not like that. What do you call the cut when you go at an angle? So I kind of took a shortcut there, but I'm getting better at building things. So finally I can make a decent looking box. This actually probably looks like a drawer. So if I ever get tired of modular, I can just repurpose this as a drawer for the garage or something. Webbit, nice job on the case, thank you. I like the look. This is looks very sort of natural. And basically what I did was basically just sand this. I did this sort of wonder if you can see it. There's this slight, I don't know what you call this, like a facet. Basically slight shape there. And then I sanded this whole thing, and then I tried doing a finish with micro mesh pads that I have for polishing guitar frets. So I'm not doing that anymore, so I thought I would use them on this, and I got this quite nice sort of a satin finish. And it feels pretty smooth, but what I noticed is that after a while it sort of got a little bit more rough, so I would have to redo the thing, and I can't be bothered to. Also, I have these rubber feet here from Thomann, like 150, so €1.50. And the rails were the expensive part of this case, for about maybe 150 total euros. And then we have the bus boards here, which were maybe €80 for 2 of them. And power is expensive, of course. The wood was like €15, so basically nothing. And adding all of that up, you are basically almost in the same price range as a ready-made case from Döpfer, for example. But there's always the feeling of having something you built yourself. Okay, so I thought that I would just start adding my modules. I think I'll go, I have the plan on modular grid here, and I basically planned this so that I would have 3 sections here. So there's modulators on the left, and there's voices in the middle, and effects and output on the right. It's not exactly evenly divided, but that's basically the idea. It's things are flowing from left to right. And we'll see how we get on with this. After the whole thing is done, I should be left with 1 HP of empty space. So this is a pretty tightly planned. Okay, we'll start with the first module that I intend to have next to the power, which is this Erica Synths Pico input. This is a stereo input module that can bring line level signals up to modular level. This was basically to be able to bring my other hardware synths or other audio into the modular. Now I haven't used this as much as I thought I would, so we will see if this is actually staying in the rack, because I have other ways to bring up the level as well. But we will put this in for now. Basically, if I take this out, I would free up basically 4 HP, because this is 3 HP. So I could have like a small Doepfer module instead of this one. And the nice thing about these Erica Synths modules are that they have shrouded power headers, so you have an easier time of having the correct orientation on your power. Eurorack power is basically, it's not good. You have to be sometimes very careful with how you're plugging things in, because not all manufacturers use shrouded headers. So when you have bare headers, you have to check that your positive and negative are correctly aligned. You have to have your red stripe on the negative side, unless you want to fry your modules. I won't be screwing these in just yet. I like to have a little bit of room for tweaking the setup. So next up is this important little module here. This is the Oxy pipe. So this is a breakout module for the Oxy One sequencer. This basically brings the CV and gate outs into your modular with a single HDMI cable. Now I have the pipe Mark 1, and the difference between this and Mark 2 is that reset CV in and clock in are now out, and they are reversed. So clock is where you have your reset on this one. So all I have to do is remember that clock is on the left, and I'll be fine. Now this is a passive module, so no power needed. We'll just put this here. And I see no reason to get the Mark II when I have the Mark I, because I can remember that I don't even ever read these, so I remember that my clock is on the left. And then we have very small Doepfer thing somewhere here. Next to the pipe, we will put the Doepfer A160-2 clock divider 2. So this is a small, really nice clock divider. You can choose your signal type, gate, trigger, and you can choose your clock divisions with this switch here. There are 3 different three different types of division. You get your 2 to 1 to 8, your prime numbers, and 2 to 8. So there's quite a lot of versatility in this small module here. Very important. You can basically divide clocks on the oxy, but then you have to use up a gate output for each divided clock signal. So that's why I have a dedicated clock divider here. And then we get another small Doppler module is here. Now here's a Doppler sequential switch. So this is basically a switch that basically you can either plug in a signal here and then a trigger here, and it will trigger or sequentially activate these 4 outputs here. So you can send one signal to a different place for each trigger you send to this, or you can plug an inputs into these and then send these sequentially into one output. So this is a fun module for example, taking your oscillators and running different waveforms for each trigger here into your filters or whatever. So you can change your waveforms each time this receives a trigger. So basically round robining your waveforms. That is one use for this. Now the next one is this one that will probably be replaced with something more useful. This is a Doppler A183-3 amplifier. So this can basically amplify audio signals, CV signals, so LFOs, envelopes. So the most useful thing about this is, for example, if your envelopes are, let's say your envelopes are 5 volts, but your filter needs more voltage to open fully. So you can basically bring up the level with this. And I also tried to use this with my oscillators as basically a drive stage or an overdrive before my filters. This is a hard clipping circuit, I think. Basically it just chops off the top of the waveform. So it doesn't sound bad, but it's not as nice as a soft clipper. We will put this in for now. What I might replace this with is maybe more VCAs or something. Okay, so the modulators and utilities on this row are in there. So we'll move on to the middle row, and then we'll have our envelope generator here, or a function generator. This is the IntelliGel Quadra with the expander. So this is a nightmare to wire up. You have to plug 4 cables here, each to the right place in the right alignment. So you get the signal between the module itself and the expander here. This is basically a 4 analog envelopes or function generators. They can be switched from exponential to linear, and they can be attack decay envelopes or attack sustain release envelopes, or they can loop. So you can basically have like an LFO. So this can do very fast attack and decay times. So you can do very sort of percussive sounds with this. One thing I love to do is run this in linear mode, which is faster than exponential on this one, and into the IntelliGel Quad VCA set to exponential mode. So you can do some really sort of interesting percussion sounds with that, like melodic percussion. This is quite a nice module. The expander takes quite a lot of space, so we will see how much I will actually use the expander functions here. So I could free up like 12 HP if I took out the expander and only use the Quadra. So we'll see how it goes. And this will go in here somewhere. Nope. Yes. And set this here. And then I thought that I would basically power this up every now and then to check that I'm not going to fry my modules. So if something is powered wrong or there's some problem, I will only fry maybe a part of my modules. I have never had a problem with power, but you never know. So let's just power this on and see what happens. Okay, we have lights. I wonder if you can see on the stream. Yeah, we are getting lights everywhere, so basically we can have a little bit of stuff happening on the Quadra here. You get blinky lights. Okay. Then we will put a very important module in the next spot here. 2 HP passive malt. This is an IntelliGel malt. They're quite cheap, so it's good to have a few of these in your rack. Malt your signals, and basically take the same signal and bring it to different places. And I think I will treat the next module on this row as maybe a voice more than a modulator. So next up, we will be putting something on the top row here. And here it is. This is the IntelliGel triple AT, or triple AT, however you're supposed to pronounce that. It's a triple attenuator, attenuator. So you can invert signals, you can attenuate signals. You have switches for unipolar, bipolar for each of the 3 channels here. You can use this as a simple mixer, and you can also have functions on each channel here. So basically you have A times 2, you can double the voltage. You have B plus 5, you can add 5 volts to the signal. And you have C equals 0, so you can basically mute the signal, or if you flip this switch, there's 0 volt going out of channel C. So it's basically a very useful utility. I bought this used. I bought most of these used, actually. It's a good way to save a lot of money. So I got this used, and this has the LED colors reversed. So it works just as it should, but the LEDs light up red for positive and green for negative, which is the reverse of how it should be. But it doesn't really matter, so I'm not gonna send it in for repair, because that would be probably more expensive than actually buying a new one. So this will be plugged in here. Let's see. And this is super annoying. Okay. Then we have a few of my favorite modules from my favorite manufacturer here. We have the mutable instruments stages here. Now this is a segment generator. You can use this as a envelope generator, or a ADSR or DAHDSR envelope generator, or whatever you can come up with using the functions that this can do. And I have the alternative KMM firmware installed, so this has quite a lot of functions there. For example, you can have 6 Turing machine functions here, or other sort of random generators going. So this is a very useful module to have. It does a lot. It can be a little bit difficult to use, but this has basically saved me quite a bit of money and space, because you can use this as for example, as a slew limiter. So I was looking at getting a slew limiter, and then I realized that I can actually use stages as a slew limiter. So with the alternative firmware, you can even do independent slew times for the rising and falling portion of the wave. So super rising and falling voltage. So it's super useful and very powerful module. And then we have another passive mult here, another IntelliGel mult. And next up is another mutable instruments module. This is TIDES. It says tidal modulator. This basically 4 modulation outputs. So you can have different LFO shapes, and you can have them in different phases. So you have very interesting modulation capabilities here, as well as a function generator, an AD generator, ASR envelope, and an oscillator. And this can actually do chords. It's a very interesting module as well. I think Mutable Instruments does or did design such great modules. These are very useful to have in your case because they can do a lot. Let's see, plug this in and okay. So I think that's it for basically for the modulators here. And next up, we will have our voices. I'll actually start from the middle row because this is either a voice or a modulator, however you want to look at it. It's a Doepfer A118-2 noise, random, and sample and hold. So this is basically a noise generator which has white noise and colored noise, and it has basically a random signal here that you can use to modulate things. There's a slew rate control here and level control, and it has a sample and hold. So basically you get that classic sample and hold noise kind of modulation with this, or you can add some slew to that and make it a bit different. And you also have track and hold. So a very useful module, and it's always good to have some noise in your case. Just plug this in here. Yes. Okay, next up I think we'll continue with this middle row here. We have this heavy module here. Now this is the Doepfer A-111-4 Quad VCO. They have some very imaginative names, very sort of a German engineering type of thing. This is a big module. This is quite heavy. This is basically 4 independent analog voltage controlled oscillators. And you basically have your modulation options here. There's exponential FM for each oscillator, as well as a choice between linear FM and pulse width modulation. So the one downside to this is that you have to choose whether you want linear FM or pulse width. So I have pulse width set on the 2 upper oscillators and then linear FM on the 2 lower oscillators. Then you also have sync for each oscillator and triangle, square, and saw outputs. And you have mix outputs on the bottom here, and it sounds huge. I mean, it's 4 really good analog oscillators. These are incredibly stable. These hold like tuning incredibly well. So I had some analog stuff from a certain other company, and while they were okay, they did not stay in tune very well, and they were quite difficult to tune. So this is basically much higher quality module than what you can get from the cheaper ones. I will try and get this cable in here and try to plug it in to feel my way in here. Okay. Our quad oscillator is in. And again, most of this was bought used. So for example, the quad VCO I got for half the price of a new one. So you can save a lot of money by just going used. Doesn't make much sense to buy new modules if you can find them used. Okay. Okay, I have to check what I have planned for this one here. We'll continue on the bottom row here. We have our first filter here. Now this is your analog filter 8. So I was recently looking for a new filter, and I was basically trying to choose between the filter 8, your analog, and Shakmat Centaur's gates. So in the end, I actually found this one used for a very good price, and I went for the filter 8. This is a very cool filter with 8 different outputs. You get it's basically a 4-pole filter, but you can basically output 1 pole, 2, 3, 4 poles of low pass. You get high pass, band boost plus notch, a phase shift, and band pass. There's like a lot of outputs here, and you can also set this to either audio or LFO rates. You can use this as an 8 output sine oscillator. So you can have 8 sine outputs all at different phases, and you get compensation for each output, and you can of course use this as 8-phase LFO. So there's a lot to do here, and you can freeze the filter by flicking the switch here, which makes for some very interesting modulation capabilities here. So this is a very cool module, and best of all, made in Europe, in Belgium. And I like to support European companies whenever I can. Well, I don't know if I'm supporting anyone by buying used, but I feel better about having stuff that is built, if not in Europe, then at least somewhere that's not in like a made in China or something. I mean, they can be fine products, but I like to have stuff that is built closer by. Because so much of what we buy, basically, we have no choice but to buy stuff that is made in China, for example. So it's nice to choose something else when you can. Now the next one in this row of modules is this one, another euroanalog module. Now this is a Fold 6 wave folder. This is basically an analog wave folder, a very good one, and you get two inputs. You get CV-ins for fold and shape, and there's the main output and the alternative output. Basically, you get two different kinds of wave folding, which I believe are the main types of wave folding in this one very small module. The nice thing is, of course, that this is 4 HP. It's quite a small one, and it sounds really good. And another made in Europe module. Let's try and plug this in here. Okay. And we'll move back to the middle row and we will, let's see, find this one. Now this is the Doppler A114 ring modulator. So this is dual ring modulator module. So basically we get two ring modulators. It's very simple. You get your X and Y inputs, and then you have your output. Nothing fancy, but just basic ring modulator. Now, a part of this case was basically inspired by my visit to the Synthesizer Museum in Berlin, where they have a lot of these beautiful analog synthesizers. So I wanted something that was analog and had these sort of classic functions here. So I basically took the advice of Mylar Melodies, who said that there's not much better to or better synth design than the ARP 2600. So I took inspiration from the ARP 2600 when I was choosing some of these modules here. I would have like the ability to do these classic synthesizer sounds. And one of those things was the ring modulator. So basically, I think everyone will say that it's dumb to build a monosynth or analog monosynth in a eurorack, but I mean, basically it was a matter of getting an analog oscillator and a few other analog bits, and then I have the VCAs and everything anyway, so it's not that much not much more stuff you need to make an analog monosynth here. Let's check my camera here. It's a little bit overexposed. Okay, looking a little bit better. And the next one for the middle row is the IntelliJ Quad VCA. Of course, a classic Quad VCA module. You have a lot of control over your VCAs. You get your level controls here. You get basically get this knob for linear or exponential response, and then you have a 6 dB boost for each channel. And this also works as a mixer. It's just a really really versatile and very functional VCA module here. And we'll plug this in. We'll plug something into the top row for a change. Okay. And then we still have a few voices to plug into the top row. So some of my absolute favorite modules. An absolute classic. Mutable Instruments Rings. This sounds absolutely incredible. This does such beautiful sounds, and this is so tweakable and so versatile, and just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful module. I just love the physical modeling sounds in this. And it's been out of the rack for quite a while now because I had no space for it, but now it's going in and it is not coming out. So this is staying. Let's check our power for a change here. And let's see if I fry my modules. Everything looks to be okay. Everything is powering up. And everything looks fine. Okay. Now the next one is another of my absolute favorite modules. Mutable Instruments Plats, or plates, or plats, or whatever you want to call this. The macro oscillator. This has basically 24 different modes. Now 3 of them are DX7 FM modes. So you get 3 banks of DX7 presets. So basically you have 22 different modes here. And all of them have your main output and your auxiliary output. So you have different variations. You get a lot of control with these knobs here. It sounds absolutely beautiful. Everyone is copying this one, and they even Arturia put these algorithms in the Mini Freak and the Micro Freak, I think. Behringer has copied this, of course, and even Oxy Instruments put a lot of these algorithms in their Coral module. So I think it's such a shame that Mutable Instruments ended, because they're probably one of those companies that had a huge impact on the modular world, or just the synthesizer world as well. Because all of their designs, or almost all of their designs, were open source. All the hardware is open source, the software is open source, so everyone can just copy their work. I think the point was that everyone should iterate on their work and improve their work, but it just ended up so that everyone was building copies of Mutable Instrument modules. So next up on the top row is another Mutable Instruments module. There's Ripples, liquid filter. So this is basically I think it's a Roland SH101 style filter. And it's a very smooth, beautiful sounding filter. So 24 dB per octave and 12 dB per octave, so 4-pole and 2-pole modes here, switchable. You get your high pass, band pass, and low pass outputs, and there's VCA for the low pass, so this can basically be like an end of chain for your synth voice. There's volt per octave tracking on the resonance, and of course you get resonance CV and frequency CV, and there's two inputs. One of them has this level knob here, so you can drive this. This has a beautiful soft clipping drive, sounds great, and another great module from Mutable. And you can get the Behringer version for, I think, €50. It's ugly, but I guess it sounds probably the same, so it'll be okay. So next up we have our voices, we have our modulators. So what is left? We have effects, and we have our mixer and output. So we'll move on to effects. We'll stay with this mutable theme here. So our last mutable module here is the Mutable Instruments Beats. This is the last module they put out. This is a granular texture synthesizer. Basically a granular processor, and also a wavetable oscillator as well. And has decent reverb, and can make some really cool sounds. Takes a little bit of tweaking, but sounds really good. And it is going right here. And this completes our almost entire row of Mutable Instruments modules here. I would like to have more Mutable, but used prices locally are getting quite high. And I would rather have the originals than copies. And we'll move on to the Next effect we have, so this is IntelliJ C legs. We have basically a delay module here. This is a stereo delay. They call it a character delay. It has all these different ways to add character to your delay. So there's a very nice sounding drive here. You get noise. I never used that. You get quite a nice reverb actually. So actually a very nice reverb for a delay module. And then you have a lot of control over your delay here. You can and your modulation, you have a lot of options here, as well as you can bring in, and of course, an auxiliary CV here, so you can modulate these parameters here, and then you can of course modulate everything here, so you can modulate almost everything, make for some really seasick sounds, and you get switches for delay time, delay type, or basically ping pong and different types. Then you have digital, bucket brigade, and tape types here. Just a really nice sounding module here. We'll plug it in actually into this here. And after this is done, I will probably rearrange my power in the case, but I just have to get this done for now. Okay, we are almost done. Now, next one is huge. This is the Strymon Magneto. This is a like 4-head tape delay that has like a huge amount of features, sounds really good, and this is an enormous and heavy module. This is 28 HP and it has all these PCBs here in different orientations, and this is very weighty, and I got this for a crazy good price. So saw this for sale for a really good price and I jumped on it. Didn't have a picture or anything, and I'm still surprised that it was not a scam. But I got this module. This is basically mint condition. Had the box and everything. I have no idea why it was so cheap, but who cares? It's a beautiful module, and I did not have space for this in my previous case, and now I have space, and I absolutely will keep this here. This does all these crazy tape effects. You can basically treat this like a tape machine. You get all your transport controls, and you get a vari-speed pitch shifting, which sounds incredible. And you can just tweak this a lot. And of course, you have your tape speed, which can be quantized to a scale. So you can basically pitch shift in scale with your motor speed and go crazy. It's a very cool module. I'm glad to have it back in the rack. Now, that's it for our effects. And then we still have our mixer and output modules. So right now, I have the Befaco ST-Mix stereo mixer. It's a 4-channel stereo mixer, like a basic mixer, and just works really well. Doesn't take up too much space. It's 6 HP. And nothing much to say about this. Sounds good. It's a mixer, stereo mixer. Basically, I can have the C-legs and magneto, and why not the beads as well, plugged into this all the time, and still have one channel left for other things. So we'll just plug this in here. And we are almost done. Now for our output, we have the Pefaco and DivKit output bus. Now I got this in a trade. It's a very nice output module, but it's maybe twice as wide as it needs to be, and is just complete overkill for my setup. So I will keep this in for now, but there's one way I could free up like 4 HP if I got just a basic Pefaco output module, which is half the width of this one. And I basically only need one input on my output. So I don't need all of this. But it's a very nice sounding module and very functional module. And I really like having the proper line out jacks here, and I have also the headphone jacks here. And let's see if I can actually get my hand in there. I'll probably have to pull the mixer out. Now getting the final module in is annoying, and but we can manage. Now that I'm doing this, I realized that I made the right choice in getting the bus boards instead of sticking with the flying bus boards, which are basically just cables, because those would be a nightmare to deal with. So I'm quite happy with my choice of power here. Probably have to move the magneto a little bit. Okay, everything is plugged in, and according to modular grid, I should have plenty of power in reserve. So the 4ms raw power puts out 2 amps on plus 12. I think it's 1.5 on minus 12 maybe, and 1 amp on plus 5. We're using 0 volts on plus 5. We're using maybe 1500 on plus 12 and 8 or 900 on minus 12. So we are well within the recommended limits. So let's just see if all the modules blow up when I plug in the power. See what happens. Okay, we have blinky lights. Okay, it's such a beautiful thing. I am a bit of a ear fetishist, and I just love the way this thing looks. And I love just playing with this. And a lot of what I do with the modular is just experimenting and weird noises, weird sounds, and maybe not so much the kind of music I would want to post on YouTube or anything. But I do use the modular for basically voices in my tracks, because it just I think it just sounds really good. And for my previous track I posted on YouTube, I basically used this as a analog monosynth. I was doing some subtle and not so subtle modulation on a lot of things, and just making full use of the possibilities of modular, even though it was like an analog monosynth. And I think it sounded really good. And then you can do all the crazy noises and weird stuff as well. So turn off the power. What is left? We need to actually screw them in. So I have the FHCO knurlies, of course. So these are basically these little screws that are designed for eurorack. They make basically screwing in your modules much easier, and they also protect the modules because they have these nylon washers here. And I will just start doing this. This will be the most entertaining part of the stream here. I was basically done much faster than I thought I would be. We won't be getting any sounds out of this today, or I might play with this later. Another thing I'm doing today is I'm testing my new lighting setup. Right now it's maybe a little bit too much, a little bit too bright, because it's kind of washing out some of my modules there. But I got this sort of a pretty inexpensive video light with a lantern softbox, it's called. Gives this kind of a nice looking soft light. And this is the first time I'm actually doing it for, or using it for shooting anything. Oh, and the module fixings. Basically, you have a choice between threaded inserts, these strips, where you have your screw holes, or you can get sliding nuts. Sliding nuts are annoying because you always have to either you have to take out a lot of modules so you can free up your sliding nuts, or you have to always take into account that you might want to put something in between other modules, so you might have to always keep in mind that you need to have access to more sliding nuts. So my choice is threaded inserts, or thread these strips, because then I don't need to worry about having the having access to sliding nuts. Now with sliding nuts you can basically get your modules very tightly grouped together, but I don't think it matters that much. Now some of these modules I will only attach with 2 screws, so I basically, for the filter 8 for example, there's one here and one here, so cross like this, and that's enough for basically modules of this size. But then for something like the magneto, I will put 4 screws, because this will just sort of move a little bit here because it's so large. Basically this is what it looks like when you're putting together a eurorack case. It's not the most exciting thing, but I do think it's actually enjoyable. And I like tinkering with this stuff, and it's sort of, it's like this sort of mindfulness thing, or a meditative experience when you're just putting together your instrument. But it's not something you want to do every night. So this is my setup for now. But as I said, I might free up. I could basically free up 8 HP by taking out these 2 modules here, and then get something like a Doepfer dual VCA in 4 HP, or maybe 2 of them, because I only basically have the quad VCA, so I probably should have more VCAs in the rack. So the IntelliJ C-Legs is getting 4 screws as well, because it's quite a wide module. Let's see. I like how some manufacturers put these sort of wider screw holes here, so you can slide the modules around a little bit. But Doepfer only does these simple holes here, round holes. Right now, yeah, we have a problem here because we need a little bit more space. So I can just slide the quad VCA to the right a little bit and free up some space for the Dupfer ring mod. So that's why you should have these wider holes here so you can slide things over. This is the quad VCO here. And this is getting 4 screws as well. And then there's the Dupfer noise and random and sample and hold and track and hold. And IntelliJ Quadra and Quadra expander. Maybe some things I think I'm missing are, well, the few more VCAs would be nice, of course. Then I don't really have any logic. So I would like to get a logic module. Something with basically like and, or, and other types of logic. And let's see here. I think the Quadra and expander are fine with these screws here. And let's get to the top row. We are almost done here. The one good thing about building your own case is that if you want to expand, you want to upgrade, it will be cheaper, basically. Because all I had to do with this one is I had to get like I had to get new power, but the actual case itself, just I had to get like one set of these rails here, and I could use the old ones on the bottom row here, and then I had to get some wood or wood board, so that was only like 20 euro, and I still have some of it left, so I think maybe 15 euro in wood in this case. If I had a like a pre-made case, then I would have had to try to sell the case to get some money back. Then buy another case and maybe hope that there would be a suitable case for sale used, or then buy a new one, and that would have been a lot more expensive. This is to loosen the shell here and get these tightened first. I have to say that I prefer the silver panels to black ones or other colors. I really like the look of these silver ones, and I wish all of these were silver, but at least I can have all the black ones in the bottom row. And screwing in rings. And only a few more modules and then I am done with this and I can get to playing. So this sitting on the floor is getting not so comfortable when you're almost 40 years old. But there's really no better place to do this than on the floor. I forgot to vacuum the rug. Hope it's not that dirty. Right. Is everything screwed in, I think. A little bit of adjustment here. And triple add was not yet properly tightened. And I think we're done. Everything is solid. And we are basically left with 1 HP here. So it's just a tiny little empty space here. But if I do end up getting rid of the Pico input, getting a 4 HP module instead, then it will be a very tight fit. Oh, that was about 1.5 hours. Okay. And this was basically maybe a couple of months project, and a lot of it was just waiting for parts so I could finish the case. I think I'm very happy with how it turned out. Let's power it on one last time here. Flip the switch. We get beautiful blinky lights. Okay. I might play with this tonight for a while and see what I can come up with, and try patching some of the modules I haven't had in the rack for a while, especially magneto and plots and maybe rings. Make some sounds that I have missed. Okay, thank you so much for joining me, and we'll get back to streaming some synthesizer sounds later. I don't know about next week. I have to see. Maybe the week after that, or sometime anyway. And I'll try to include the eurorack in some of my streams as well. But thank you so much, and I'll see you around.